I always say tariffs is the most beautiful word to me in the dictionary, because tariffs are going to make us rich as hell.
So there's a lot of talk about tariffs. Tariffs are everywhere. It's impossible to escape them. They're in the news. You can scroll through YouTube. Every other video on your feed is probably about tariffs. And there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of panic in the markets. Check your retirement portfolio, and it's clear people are anxiously anticipating this up and coming Liberation Day coming up on April 2nd. A lot of people seem to be confused about tariffs. They're now just finding out what tariffs mean. For me, it's totally different. I grew up in a post-Soviet country, Belarus, right after Soviet Union collapsed under heavy tariffs. And, these tariffs really shaped my childhood. And so I've gotten to know how they impact the economy up close and personal. And so in today's video, we're going to talk about tariffs. We're going to talk about why they matter and discuss why 2025 is really the turning point in the US economy. So hit that like button and let's dive in. Let's rewind to the 90s. The Soviet Union collapses, the borders crack, the Iron Curtain falls, and this whole world of capitalism rushes in. For me, as a kid growing up at that time, one thing that stood out was cars. See, domestic cars like Lada, Volga, and Moskvich were everywhere. Every other household had one. Why? Tariffs. The government slapped massive tariffs on foreign cars to protect local manufacturers. Result? Most people drove these Soviet relics, underpowered, outdated, and let's be honest, kinda sad.
So it can stand up to hammer blows, but not water, as we see here, and here, and here.
But here's the thing. As soon as those borders opened, foreign cars flooded the market. People saw an immense arbitrage opportunity, and Japanese and German cars just flooded our city. And it was interesting because tariffs made them extremely unaffordable, but the quality gap between the German cars and the Soviet-produced vehicles was very drastic, and so people still opted in to pay that premium to get that foreign. See, living under tariffs wasn't an abstraction. It wasn't a theoretical situation for me. It was my daily reality. I had to live in a country with centralized government control, where one man, one government made all the decisions about imports, export, critical industries, and it really impacted our daily life. We were basically stuck buying the products that local manufacturers produced because foreign products, even though more attractive and more superior, were out of reach. Here's the big picture. Decentralized control versus centralized government, right? In the case of Lada, closed borders pretty much guaranteed their success. And I'll put success in quotes because it was artificial versus within a decentralized free market economy, companies like Ford, BMW, Japanese manufacturers, they actually had to fight and compete for every customer in a free market. So to do that, they actually had to release cost-efficient, reliable, attractive vehicles that actually delivered to their customers. And so this is the key difference. Fighting for every customer and not relying on government as a crutch to keep you afloat. And we know this. Decentralized markets outcompete centralized ones every time. Why? Freedom allows for the best company to win. It allows for best ideas to win. Decentralized systems are organic and centralized are top-down. Running a small business with a top-down control is probably good for the business if the person who's running it is competent. Running a complicated system like a country's economy by a centralized group of decision makers is extremely ineffective. Even if you put a committee of quote-unquote high IQ economists, they can never model a system as complex as a country's economy without missing some of the variables or making incorrect assumptions. We've seen countless examples of centralized government planning fail. Free markets are the best solution that was ever created. But here's one big, important caveat that you have to keep in mind. We do not live in an idealized free market. We live in a world that is very globalized and that already has tariffs in place. It already has the World Trade Organization, WTO, that is setting the rules for trade. Unfortunately, countries like China have learned how to game these rules, doing things like devaluing their own currency to make their exports more attractive to other countries. They've learned how to navigate this system of rules and really exploit them to their own benefit. So when you start looking at it from that perspective, all of a sudden, reciprocal tariffs and attempts to balance out the system, this approach starts making a lot more sense when you understand that the given reality is not an idealized scenario. There are tariffs that are imposed on the United States and other countries. It is standard operating procedure.
Some might say it's economic nationalism. I call it common sense. I call it America first.
This is how trade has been done for years. And so I think a lot of the reaction that we have now is overblown. So from that perspective, reciprocity can be seen as a good thing. You hit us with tariffs, we hit you right back. And, you know, it's like walking on a tightrope. You got to strike that delicate balance. You don't want to overcorrect because, you know, you don't want other countries to treat you as a black sheep or treat you as an unreliable partner when it comes to trade. And obviously there's a cost in business for uncertainty, for not following through on your commitments, for being unreliable, for switching up the terms. There are real reputational costs and there are real economic costs associated with that. But another, I would say, more important and more alarming scenario is when tariffs start being used selectively. Let's say the government imposes tariffs on a specific product. Some government official's body has a factory that produces a specific product, and now there's a tariff specifically on that product. Instead of picking winners and losers, tariff the whole industry as a whole. So steel is identified as critical to national security. Well, let's tariff the whole industry. Let's not pick and choose specific companies and just kind of have an even playing field in that regard. At least we have some predictability from that perspective. Anything that has to do with semiconductors, let's tariff that, right? No questions asked, instead of going for those specific companies. I'd also say that going to a trade war with all of our trade partners all at once is extremely short-sighted. I think we do need a coalition, maybe a North American or North American Europe coalition, where we do have free trade among our closest allies, and then maybe imposing tariffs on our key competitors, and having a block of allies that are still supporting us, and we have this ecosystem of free trade within a block. So tariffs are a blunt tool. Tariffs will never increase efficiency. They will not boost innovation, but efficiency is not everything, especially when you're staring down a geopolitical rival like China. China is a real manufacturing industrial giant, right? And what we learned during the pandemic is that United States was not able to produce the basic things like masks and personal protective equipment during the pandemic. We had to rely on China for those simple products. And so that is really alarming, and an argument can be made that we have no choice but to force domestic reindustrialization for our national security interests alone. We are entering a new era, and we are renegotiating the terms of the trade, the terms of geopolitical relationships live, right? This is happening live. And there are talks about the Mar-a-Lago Accord, efforts to devalue the US dollar in order for our exports to be more attractive to foreign countries. And so a lot of this stuff is very alarming. A lot of it is truly pivotal. We're living through historic times. I know it sounds cliche after COVID, but I mean, this month it's going to be in history books regardless of the outcome. So buckle up and let me know what you guys think. Are you on board with these tariffs? Do you think Trump is bluffing? Is this all marketing ploy that will be used for negotiating new trading terms? Or are these tariffs for real? Is this an actual shift in geopolitics that is monumental and irreversible? I'm very curious to know what you guys think, so drop a comment below, subscribe, like the video, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.